Good evening, friends. So we are back with our another expert talk conversation, which we were doing from last 1 week, and today we have Nitin, and he's talking about business agility. Nitin, do you want to introduce yourself before we start talking about business agility?
Sure, Saket. And first and foremost, I would like to thank you, Saket, and thanks everyone for attending. And thank you, Saket, for providing me this opportunity to be here today and kind of talk about some of the ideas that I have been kind of thinking over and kind of forming over the last few years, I would say. Um, so thanks, everyone. Talking about myself, I would get in the chronological order, kind of talking about what I've done because I think that will also help explain some of the ideas that I'm kind of sharing today. So I've been in this industry for about 12, 13 years now. Started off as a developer. That was post my MBA. Wrote some code, and that was primarily the DFSI domain. From then, I moved on and joined ThoughtWorks, where I had spent nearly a decade of my career doing a variety of roles, kind of varied from being a QA to a PA to a project manager to a program manager to actually being a GM for their daily operations before I quit ThoughtWorks. And that tenure was interesting because we were pushing a lot of boundaries on Agile, and also I had the opportunity to kind of run or lead, I would say, one of the largest Agile projects in the world, so to say. We had a team of comprising of about 220 people working on a single code base spread across three countries and all of it. From ThoughtWorks, I moved on about a year ago, and along with four others, I co-founded Sahaj Software Solutions, with the primarily idea being that so we were feeling a little uncomfortable with the growing complexity in the systems. I mean, businesses are getting complex by the day, no doubt about it. But today, the business solutions today that we are building are also reflecting the same complexity, and that's something that five of us were kind of quite uncomfortable with. And we founded Sahaj on the premise that if we really understand the problem well, then we can actually build solutions which are a lot more simpler and not have to reflect the complexity of the business and solve the problems really well. And that's what we've been trying to kind of do in the last one year, working with clients and delivering solutions which kind of follow those parameters. So yeah, that's briefly about me and what I've been doing.
Good, good. So you are trying to simplify the solutions and make the simple, profitable solutions for your clients.
As much as possible. That's the
Great.
idea.
Yeah. And just a note for viewers, like if you have any query related to this particular topic, you can use the Q&A app, which is available at your left hand side, and you can type your questions. They will be visible to us, and then we will try to take them during our conversation. So let's get back to the business agility. So how do you define this business agility? Because this term is becoming quite hype. People keep talking about it. A lot of conferences, you find at least 2-3 speakers talking about business agility. So what is this business agility is all about as per you?
Okay, so I'll take the probably the most widely read definition of it, which is what from Wikipedia is now. Wikipedia says that business agility is the ability of a business to rapidly respond to the changing business environment. That's how it defines. Wikipedia defines business agility. And when you talk about agility and business agility, I think the whole term of business agility has been kind of brought in and popularized a lot by a number of tech startups in the last, I would say, 5 years, because these guys have been able to come in and question and challenge and at times take over the market from traditional players. One example that I keep quoting about is today, the taxi companies are not worried about a new taxi startup coming in and with a fleet of 100, 200, 500 taxis, putting in that kind of money and actually taking over their business. Today, they're worried about Uber and Lola, which are .com, which are technology companies. Now, and the reason why they have been able to do something is because of what I call business agility. These guys have been able to come in, look at the market, and actually being able to adapt to the growing needs of their consumers in a way that traditional businesses have not been able to even think about. And that is what I think business agility is all about. You look at the consumers, you look at your market and see how that whole thing is kind of evolving, and provide services which are not traditional, provide services which are according to the changing requirements at a pretty rapid rate. Something which probably used to take about 2 years worth of project. Today we're talking about 2 to 3 months, and companies turning it around in that much time. That's, I think, is a thought of business agility, if I to say.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you are talking about the business agility starts with exploiting an opportunity or identifying an opportunity which exists in the market, and also with the speed of an execution, because you may see an opportunity, and if you take 3 years to build the solution, and exploiting the opportunity, and second, executing the solution at a faster pace before anybody can wake up and think about it.
Yeah.
Great. So how companies can become agile? Because and the rapid and the speed is a very relative thing, because if the organization size itself defines the speed, the market itself defines the speed, because .com is a kind of a business which is internet based, which can turn things faster, but things may be different for different organizations.
True, Saket, and I think that's where the whole thing comes in. Again, I would quote another example. This is one of my customers, traditional retail, and we're talking about a company, or a company which actually sells train tickets. Now, selling train tickets traditionally again has been pretty. I mean, I go to the station, I buy a ticket and board a train, and I'm not talking about India here. I'm talking about Europe. I'm talking about small, kind of shorter journeys. You're talking about an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of journeys, wherein I go to the station, buy a ticket, and board a train. Right. Now, these guys came in and looked at the market, and kind of created an opportunity out there to be able to sell train tickets online. Today, the business is so large that in their geography, 90% of the train tickets booked online go via their systems. Again, this was not existing. The traditional companies which were kind of selling train tickets did not see this. But you talk about internet. Today, internet, the way it is connecting, it is changing the way the population, the humans today interact, and also the delivery channels. So we are no longer kind of thinking only about traditional delivery channels. I'll go and deliver it. But a lot of them are being enabled by the internet. I mean, it could be as simple as tickets, which in DMAT format, and I could deliver it, to versus something like a big basket, where again, a bunch of the transactions and customer interactions take place online via the internet, and just a delivery piece is kind of handled offline. So what you're doing there is you're looking at these opportunities both from a market growth perspective as well as from a cost reduction perspective, and saying, can I have a much better business model than what the traditional companies have been doing? Now, yes, I agree, and I think one of the big things that people need to think about, or businesses need to think about, is when something like this happens, how can you respond to it, and how can you also be as agile in responding to it? Um, an example there is the answer to Uber, which people kind of thought about, was Ola and things like that. But again, if you look at a traditional taxi company, even a large company like a Meru, they weren't able to think in those lines, and weren't able to get out to their consumers in the way the Ola did, because a lot of time your mindset is blocked by your current operations. Hey, I have a team of 30 people who man those terminals. I have a 100-member team who is actually running the phones. It is time that businesses start questioning those, and actually come in and ask IT to say, guys, look, here is what is happening in the market. Here are the trends. Can you guys exploit these trends, and without looking at what my current business cost and liabilities are, can you recreate a business model for me so that I'm actually future proof? I mean, look at the emerging trends. I mean, mobile is no longer an emerging trend. You're talking about Internet of Things. You're talking about things kind of talking to each other. Imagine what happens when if your fridge is able to order groceries and milk for you. What will happen to your traditional retail industries? So those are, I think the future is already knocking at our doors, and we need to look at this and then think about it. Now, coming to the size of the businesses, yes, a lot of times we get constrained by our size. I am a $100 million business, I am a $1 billion business, and I cannot move as fast. I think that whole idea needs to go out of the window, because you need to have those crack teams in your organization, and you need to have the CIO kind of coming in and looking at this technology trend and saying, how do I enable the business doing it? It might mean you create pockets out there which actually go and question it, but I think we can no longer hide behind the size that's saying, okay, I'm large in the business, and nothing will happen to me, and I cannot be as agile.
Great.
Does that make
So
sense?
yeah, definitely. And from your conversation, I am thinking about two dimension of achieving this agility. One is that many company did look at e-commerce. Like there were so many travel sites we started and closed down. There were so many e-commerce sites we started closed down. So many could see the idea. Many could see that this can become big thing, but only few can make it happen. So the execution, that the complete model, only few companies, few individuals could take or exploit it. So in your view, how few could make the agility till execution level, and some just goes down after trying 2 3 cycles, and then they could not deliver it, they cannot sustain it, which the kind of buzz they have created. So what kind of factors plays a role to make like starting from opportunity to implementation?
Sure. I mean, if you look at the factors from a business perspective, they could be pretty broad. I mean, they could range from a funding to a lot of those things. But I would kind of restrict this conversation to a lot towards execution of the ideas and technology around it, because one, that's what we're talking about, and B, that's what I have seen. I've seen a lot of companies succeed because of that and fail because of that. Actually, a quote that I read, or one of my friends was quoting a few days ago, it actually summarizes this completely, which is, go show your half-baked product to your customer. We are in the age where, as I said earlier, the 2 year, 1 year, 3 year projects are no longer the reality. A lot of the success that I see in terms of business agility is coming in from the execution of the technology, execution of the projects. And one of the cornerstones has been that we will build something and we'll take it out very, very rapidly. Even though I know it is half baked, it will only do 3 out of 25 things that I think my customers need. But based on those two things, I will get what the initial feedback is, how my customers are feeling. It gives you two things. One, it gives you a pretty clear validation of the idea and validation of whether this is going to succeed or not. Second, it gives you an opportunity to pivot. I may go out and find out an opportunity where saying, you know what, I thought about it slightly wrong. Maybe I should turn that direction. An example could be, when I was talking about the whole train ticket retailing, we went out and they noticed that alongside that there is a huge demand of a combined bus and train ticket. So I take a train ticket, I go to the destination with the train, but then last mile connectivity is by a bus. Can you give me a combination? They immediately pivoted on it. So those are the kind of other things that you need to look at. You start with an idea, pivot it, look at the validation, come back. And in this entire thing, the whole concept of how we are actually delivering it and doing it and executing it plays a very important role. Um, I would say Agile is already mainstream. And when you want to achieve business agility, you need to actually push the boundaries in Agile itself. Because you're not talking about, hey, I will do something in iterations, but again, I will continue to follow a large release cycle. You're talking about, I will do something in iterations and actually push it out. So my business needs to think in that way. The CIOs actually need to be driving the business from that perspective and saying, well, look, guys, this needs to go out. And we will be with you looking at the consumer feedback. We'll be looking at the entire thing with the business and pivot it if required, evolve it if required, build it more if required, change the priorities if required. Right? So
Okay.
that to me is the whole crux of why I think certain companies are able to make it from an execution perspective and why certain companies are not able to make it.
So like you are talking about the importance of fast feedback loop. So there should be a feedback loop so people can validate their assumptions or hypotheses rather than keep building and not going to the customer. So that plays a critical role in achieving the agility at a business level. Okay, what about in a different perspective, say big companies? So we were talking about big companies where they have their own manpower system, they have a call center, they have an IT system, they have a website, and which is doing pretty good business. Now when they see a challenge, or how can they be more open or more vigilant to such kind of new trends, new challenges, and how what advice or what works to make those things implement fast and adapt to it. So now we are talking about the big company adapting to the environment.
Okay. See, I think one big change that most of the big companies need to go through, and some of the companies are already going through this, is a change in the role of IT. You're not, when I say IT, you're talking about the CIO's organization. The CIO organization can no longer be viewed as a cost center. It has to be viewed as a center which will actually give us an edge over our competition. So CIO needs to have that kind of discussion and that kind of presence on the board to be able to start or even think about it. So you're no longer looking at a person who's just running servers and trying to kind of negotiate the best deal on the servers. That's one. Second, a lot of these companies need to actually be forward looking. I'm not saying go shut down their businesses. No, that's not. You actually need to build on top of the existing business. You need to be a lot more forward looking in terms of technology trends. When I say technology trends, again, doesn't mean that okay, we will be a cowboy developer and we'll actually start hacking into whatever the latest languages. That's not the idea. The idea is look at the larger trends. For example, cloud is a reality, and cloud is being leveraged by a lot of the smaller startups who actually compete with the big guys. I can scale on demand today. I have no longer need to invest a lot, right? Trend. IoT, Internet of Things, is a trend. Think about it. Commission an agile technology team that can actually look at these technology trends, work with the business, and actually follow all the agile principles to be able to deliver ideas pretty rapidly. That to me is kind of a mantra that I've been talking a lot about when I talk about business agility and IT enabling the business agility. Business can have 20,000 ideas, right? But the meat of it depends on the execution. And today we are in a world where execution of most of business ideas is not decoupled from technology. Technology has to play a role. So look at these trends, look at what how you want to commission these teams, and how then look at how you want to actually get more and more teams into this agile fashion and being able to deliver. And a lot of these things can actually be built on top of your current infrastructure. You don't have to completely go about replacing it. That's your competitive advantage. Leverage it rather than making it become a liability.
Okay, so what I get is that rather than just looking IT as a support system which provides ERP or maintains servers, we need to think as a business enabler or sometimes even business drivers,
Exactly.
and the business as well as IT should keep vigilant about the new trends, and they should collaborate that how the new business trends and the technology trend can mix together to achieve the better business results.
Exactly. I mean, think about an example. Few years earlier, you're talking about big, pretty hard to analyze. And we're talking about sampling and those doing those kind of things to be able to analyze the consumer behavior. Today, I mean, with the advent of big data, I think that's a huge opportunity where the technology and businesses need to kind of come together, and you need to look at ideas in terms of what technology can enable using that kind of technology. How agile can we be? Can we actually look at an idea, deliver it in a couple of weeks to the business, and see if that works, build more on it, evolve it, pivot it. Those are the options. Look at it that way. And those are kind of examples that I think businesses today need to look at in forming those agile teams and be able to drive value out of those agile teams.
Okay, and what kind of impediment do you see in achieving this business agility, like the top impediments or the roadblocks when people or company faces?
See, okay, one of the biggest impediment that I have seen is the mindset. Couple of mindsets. One, we are so big, nothing will happen to us from a business perspective. Even from a technology perspective, right? The mindset of being agile. A lot of times I have not seen it there. It is. I've seen in a lot of places where it is primarily being pushed by a small group rather than people actually realizing the importance of it and then saying, yes, we'll do it. So what happens in those situations is you're agile rather than it becoming the way to do work and think, it becomes more of a ceremony. Do you have stand-ups? Yes, I have stand-ups. Do you actually talk about the right thing in the stand-up? Oh, I don't know. Now, if I just say I do an IPM, I do a stand-up, I write stories without actually realizing and imbibing the real value of it, right? Then there is you will really will not be able to get to what the agility that is required by the IT to be able to enable business agility, right? That to me is one of the largest impediment that I have seen with a variety of organizations and clients that we have worked with in the past as well, in being able to understand and imbibe it. One. Second, a lot of times we kind of box ourselves in saying the architecture that we have followed is like this, and we probably are not ready to experiment with slightly newer things. Now, when you're talking about agility, it is not only one of the things that actually drives you to be able to deliver at that rapid rate is also the underlying architecture of the application. And that's the other impediment I've seen is are people thinking in terms of right kind of architectures, right kind of decoupling, small little pieces which can actually kind of take it through, follow it, and then the small release can actually make a difference. Last but not the least, I think the DevOps and CI and CD practices, again, not being followed up to the mark is a huge impediment. A lot of times your IT, an agile team is ready for a delivery, but then it takes about 2 to 8 weeks for that small little piece to go out in production and see the light of the day. Now, if I can have a wrap pretty agile team if they have imbibed the real values, but then if the last mile is not connected through, then the whole business value of it is lost, right? So building it, the whole agile way of thinking and building it right from the conception to the end of it to the actual delivery involving all the CI/CD practices as well is the other impediment or is the other necessity for anyone to kind of call themselves a true agile IT team, which actually can then go and enable business agility.
Okay, so these impediments looks like more the IT team implements, where the delivery impediments are, where the team is just doing practice, they are not understanding the big picture, they are not even bothered about it. They just deliver a story, they do the ceremonies and think it like, okay, we have to make these features without thinking that how much money or why this feature is needed, what is the cost of delay, what kind of revenue it is expected, and then technical challenges, and not giving an importance of the delivery, just focusing on developing things but not taking those thing to the end customer. But what about the business side impediment? So this is something like, even if when the business start appreciating the role of IT, but IT is unable to look beyond the box. So this is a segment of impediment. What the different set of impediment where business does not give a value, they don't even think of sharing the big picture with IT. They think, okay, these are the guys, they will just deliver the features.
Yeah.
So what kind of trend or problems or impediment do you see in that segment?
Okay. So in that segment, right? I mean, again, that's pretty good catch, Saket. I mean, that's a pretty big area which actually impedes a lot of business agility and true agility in terms of the IT teams. Um, so I think where one of the biggest roadblocks that I see is the mindset, the business mindset and their belief in a big bang. No, no, no. I want all of these things done, and only then I will take to the customer. That's a pretty big impediment, and we have fought so many battles in trying to get the businesses to come around to saying, no, you know what? It is okay to take a half-baked product to the customers, show it to them, and then build on top of it. That is one. Second, a lot of the organizations, or what I've seen is they have this idea of what I call throwing things over the wall. So I'm from business. I will sit together and I will create what I think is the right feature set or the right kind of ideas, products to hit the market, and then I'll throw it over the wall to IT for implementing it. And then I'm just kind of talking about why it is not implemented, why it is not done, and how quickly can I get it done. What happens in those cases is, even though the idea is great and all of it, if there isn't enough collaboration between business and IT on these things, then we don't understand things like, are we using the right technology? Can this be done in a much better way? Can the technical guys come and question you in terms of This, I understand this feature is required, but why? Why do you need this? Can I do it in a different way? Can I actually serve my customers slightly differently, but that might be better? So that's the other big impediment that I see in terms of having that collaboration and both business and IT sitting shoulder to shoulder and working that way rather than throwing things over the wall and having, okay, I've done my bit, now you do your bit, and the product will kind of come out over a period of time and things like that.
Okay, so the first I understand is it's like resistance to go for a small batch size. People feel that let's have an economy of scale. Let's put it once, and so that we have to upgrade in a one go. Why to disturb the ongoing operation for small releases?
Yeah.
And this is something like an old mindset where we always believed in economy of scale. We should do big. Why we do small?
Mhm.
So that seems to be the first impediment you spoke about. And second impediment, you are focusing on the collaboration. They are not still not playing rugby. They still want to follow the relay race, where I give you a thing and it's up to you. You figure it out. I'm not bothered, and you are responsible to deliver to me. I have already given you a requirement.
Yeah.
So which creates intermediate boundaries. Okay, so what kind of solutions in the business context? Like, because we keep talking about technology, we can talk about that you need to have a continuous integration in place, you need to have a big picture in place, you need to have a continuous delivery in place, and which is, I think, like a moderate company or with a proper focus CIO can fix those part.
Mhm.
But the business part seems to be difficult to fix, and what can be done about it?
Sure. I mean, if you're looking at to fixing it, right, again, when you talk about CIOs, it is not just the CIO will have to fix the process, but I think the whole collaboration between IT and business needs to come right from there. So the biggest change that needs to come through in a lot of businesses today is mindset. Mindset from a business side, mindset from an IT side, where business needs to start looking at IT as someone who can actually create competitive advantage for them rather than people who are geeks and sitting in a corner and they'll execute what I say. I think that is one of the biggest roadblocks that today we face in terms of a lot of people with the right mindset, with kind of right thought process and ideas, but not being able to achieve the kind of agility which they potentially can for their organizations, because this mindset and this whole barrier is there. So that the thought process needs to change, and the thought process in IT also needs to change in being from being what I call order takers. I mean, we should no longer be in a position where we sit across the table and kind of talk about, okay, this is what you need. Yeah, I can deliver it. It'll take me 10 days to deliver. It'll take me 20 days to deliver it. No. We need to understand the whys of it and why certain things are being done. And can we use technology to do those in a much better fashion? Can we actually be more agile in delivering those? Are we using those agile practices in the right fashion to enable what my business needs, or am I being dogmatic about it and just doing what I'm supposed to be doing and showing off of all of the right things? That whole collaboration mindset to me is the first and the foremost thing that needs to be done to do that. I think once that collaboration and is there, then comes the practices, right? The practices where you talk about playing the right kind of volleyballs, and doing the right kind of IPMs, doing the right kind of stand-ups. Now, these things to me are the cornerstones, the whole agile way of delivering. Without, unless and until you've imbibed it, there's no way we can actually go and enable business agility. Business and the collaboration could be the best in the world, and we are doing everything right. And from that perspective, I've understood everything well. But unless and until I follow the right dev practices, I follow the right agile practices, there is no way I can turn things around faster.
Yeah,
Right?
but when we started with Agile, we primarily started with focusing on better way of developing softwares.
Yeah.
So it was all about that we have a small team, they do things incrementally, they make the clean design, clean code, and delivers good quality products. So it was all about developing software. Now, this team may not be influential enough to go further, like they can just develop softwares. Like what a role of an agile team you see in achieving business level agility, because we are doing good software here, but how do we go up?
Okay, so I think the whole position of the agile teams and the roles in the agile teams probably needs to be relooked at. I mean, when I say relooked at, I think we need to look critically at certain roles. the developers are there and they're doing their bit and all of it. But we have these roles of agile coaches, we have the roles of business analysts, what and the QAs at times, right? What are these roles actually doing? Is my BA or are my BAs, or if I say the whole team, how are we functioning? Are we functioning in a way that I get to hear, I write certain requirements and I give it off to developers and they write the code to deliver it and then we test it. Absolutely perfect. We are following all the right practices. We do all the right things. But is that how we are doing it, or are we actually pushing the boundaries and collaborating? Right? Are we actually pushing the BA to say, okay, why this is being done? Right? Are we actually pushing the business guys to actually understand why do they want certain things done? So I think the role, those traditional definitional roles needs to be looked at, questioned, and saying how do we push the boundaries of it? What are the real value that people are adding to actually enable the business to be agile? I think that's the ultimate goal that we're talking about here. My IT teams being agile solves only the first mile of the problem. Unless and until we actually drive it into a business benefit, there is little or no benefit in us calling ourselves agile and saying we do things better, we write the best software, if we are not able to drive some business outcomes out of it. So, sorry, you say something?
Yeah, so it looks like to me that the coaches, the leaders should take this message up.
Yeah.
Maybe they show some small wins by showing some good software getting delivered by the development team, and they should use these small wins to take it further and may influence the leadership team, the middle layer team, the product management team to integrate well with the agile team, so these benefits can be taken up. So that is what I'm getting what
Yeah.
from
So again, I mean, so those are the way I was talking about is some of those roles needs to be looked at. Again, one of the old principle of agile was that the customer needs to sit right next to you in one form or the other, and I think that is something that over a period of time we need to kind of relook at and bring it back, saying, okay, how do we actually make sure the customer is sitting right next to us and being part of the development? And the way you're saying, you need to have that kind of leadership on the team which can actually drive these things not only in IT but also with business and drive that collaboration, without which one part being agile will not solve the business problems.
So if I take it further, like if I define the role, so the role of agile coach should also include responsibilities or a focus towards achieving business level agility in organization, rather than just focusing on that, okay, we can deliver software and team is self-organizing, they are doing sprint planning, they are doing daily stand-up. So we look beyond. So it's not like that, but are you making the team achieving more profit, or helping organizations to earn more money?
Exactly.
Uh,
I mean, you talk about an agile coach, right? Today, you go and say, okay, I will actually come in and I'll make sure, and we will make sure that the team is actually completely agile and they all follow all the practices and they can turn things out faster. But to what end? And I think that is a, an opportunity that the roles like agile coaches needs to come in and look at, and actually being able to drive the collaboration between businesses and IT to be able to understand those goals and to be able to deliver to those goals. Now, I think it'll be probably too far fetching if we say that agile coach single-handedly will have to do everything. Um, Businesses will have to do their bit. The business side people will have to do their bit in terms of bringing out what is it that will enable the business, right? And then agile coach can actually be the real coaches, both in terms of the IT teams and also a part of the business teams to drive this agility across those two. I think that's how I see this forming.
So you see that business like agile coach as a change agent, which can take this team level change and gradually and at an appropriate level to the business. Uh,
Absolutely.
and you touched upon the agile principle, which talks about that business people and developer must together like work together on a daily basis, and that principle is very specific. Like most of the other principles, like the people should do frequent delivery from couple of months to couple of week. There should be a good interaction. So they were kind of a bit open. Maybe there was a flexibility, but this principle was very specific, which was putting the stress on daily interaction. But
Yeah.
when we converted this principle into practices, it was more to do with only interacting about software requirements. So we spoke about, okay, user stories getting discussed and acceptance criteria is getting defined, but we don't see ceremonies as matrices much. which talks about the business level outcomes, or participating team at a higher level. We don't have those kind of well defined ceremonies.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, I think we should probably look at a history a bit in terms of why we have landed up there. I mean, today, if you look at India as a software community, traditionally we have primarily been kind of driven from an offshore perspective, right? So we have been driving offshore, and the big role of BS came in from the offshore because I can't now have my customer sitting right next to me, so I have a proxy customer with a BA and all of it, right? But times have changed. Times have changed in terms of business expectations. Times have changed in terms of business environments. Times have changed in terms of how and when you can interact, right? When I started my career, even when I was a BA, an hangout session like this was not possible, right? Today, these things are reality. And I think it is time when we look at these principles and saying, okay, are there ceremonies, are there things that we need to look at and define in terms of not just the traditional roles, but we question those roles and bring out the real principles and actually implement those. Today, I don't think there is as many impediments to having a customer interaction daily, to having a small showcase even daily. And I see a lot of teams doing that. For example, one of the teams that I'm today working on, we do not even write stories. We do not have stories because our customer interactions are not even daily, they are hourly. When the customer is sitting right next to us and then we're working together, I don't need to write stories and saying, hey, look, have I written everything correctly? Have I mentioned or anything? I would rather write code and saying, look, this is how it is functioning. Is this right? No, please change it here. Please change it there. Yes, we are good to go. Let's just go and hit production. That's how we are functioning. And I think it's time that we should look at some of those interactions and how those are defined. And again, I would come back to the roles of agile coaches. I think this is another responsibility of agile coaches in terms of understanding how business environments are changing, going back to the principle and saying, are there better ceremonies today? Are there better ways of implementing those principles than what we have done about 20 years ago?
So we got a one kind of a service organization kind of a question. Another question is that how do we measure the business agility? So let's talk about how do we measure the business agility. And yes, like a lot of time the principles has to be converted into practice, and some kind of KPIs, some way of measuring things. So how do we do that? Like what kind of practice, what kind of measurement system an organization should put to ensure that we are moving in the right direction?
Okay, I mean, when you talk about measures of business agility, I think it is a lot more open area than the even metrics of agility. So I don't think we have a set of metrics which I can say, here are 5 things. If you are scoring 1, 5, and 3, you are agile. But I think a lot of it depends on, if you look at in the last 6 months to a year and in future 6 months to a year, how much business features are you delivering? How much are we actually enabling the business to go after newer products or to go after newer markets and look at kind of expanding their base versus how much business have been taken away by a small competitor which have leveraged technology. I think we look at a matrix around that gives us a very clear idea of how agile our business is.
Okay, so something like revenue per employee. So
No,
if
no, no, let's not go there. I would take an example of, let's say a big basket, right? Today, if I am a traditional kirana store, I would actually look at how much business have I lost because since the day Big Basket started delivering in my area, versus how much new business have I able to drive from the initiatives that I have taken in the last 6 months to a year or since when Big Basket started, right? I compare those two, it gives me a very clear idea in terms of how agile I am, how fast am I actually churning out newer products and newer services to my business, to my customers, or newer channels to my business, to my customers,
so
versus
it's like,
what
yeah.
my competitor is doing.
Okay, so it's like adding the new revenue streams, and also measuring that what all new areas, new market, new products you have added in a defined duration, plus what you have lost. So what kind of a market segment, share, product, or positioning which you have lost because of the new challenger, and what all you have acquired. Something comparing that defines that how agile you are. Great. Now let's talk about service companies. So see, like we keep talking about business agility and all, but majority of Indian IT professionals are working on fixed price or support kind of projects, where they don't care about what the money customer is going to make out of this particular product. They just have a feature set. They have money which they will get once they deliver a feature set. So, do you think any business agility or any such kind of principles are relevant for those folks who are just taking order and getting paid for that order?
Okay, I think this is the kind of change that we initially spoke about, where I said we need to move away from there. Now, I think again it will depend on the situation as well. Now, if it is an ERP system or if it is a payroll system, then that kind of a model works really okay. I mean, these are the systems who are not actually today making a difference in the market. 20 years ago, ERP was something which will actually help me make more money. Today, it is not. Today, it is just a, I would say, hygiene factor without which I don't exist. With it, I just exist. I cannot actually have any differentiation. So those kind of systems pretty well. But if you are working on a system which actually is what I call the top line drivers, or which are customer interaction drivers, or which are frontline systems, then not thinking about business agility is will not take us pretty or too far out in future. So even in those things, I think we need to think about agility first and then business agility. When you think about agility, you say, okay, this is the feature that needs to be driven. Honestly, Saket, in my 14, 13, 14 years of my career, I am yet to find a customer to whom I have actually delivered a half-baked product and shown it to them, and they have not come back with changes. And in case of a fixed bid, I've actually pointed out, look, this is a fixed bid. Now you want me to do something different. How do you want to take it? We can either, in those situations, we can take two things. One is we can take our traditional change request model, which doesn't today fare very well for our the kind of business that is required. And I will just narrate kind of an experience from one of the fixed bid project that I was doing. We did the first release, and exactly this what is happening. Hey, I want this change. I want this change. That user wants this. This user wants this. This is so great. And you're like, well, guys, all this is good. This is real value. But what you have written in the contract is something else. Now, what do you want me to do? I'm okay ditching the contract and rewriting everything and taking up all of these things which are very important to you today. Or we can just follow whatever is in the contract. Surprisingly, the customer came back saying, you know what, this is more important, we'll figure out, you guys work on this. So what happened over a period of time is we had about a list of, I would say when we started off, when we signed the fixed bid contract, it was about 200 features. They added more, it became 300 features. When we delivered 180 features, they said stop. I actually do not want the rest of the 120 features. I've got what I wanted. This is the real value. Stop the project now. And I think that is the kind of mindset change that we need to bring in. Because I'm yet to find a customer who actually needs a product which A, probably will not suffice their real needs. Second, is not up to the mark in terms of what your customers are expecting. But we need to be open to ask those questions, have those conversations, and be the real partner to the business to be able to turn things around in our favor and actually have a very different relationship and a very different, I would say, stake in the game to be able to achieve the real agility and then business agility.
So very like I can relate to your example, and I believe this is more to do with the collaboration at a vendor end between the sales team and the development team, and the trust between the customer and the vendor. Because a lot of times sales has done the deal, and sales is not involved anymore. Developers are sometimes taking the requirements, sometimes not accepting it, and creates a kind of mess. But if there is a good collaboration, at a vendor end, as well as there is a good transparency between customer and everybody
Absolutely.
wants to take value out of it, because nobody want to drain the money in something which at the end may not produce results. And many times when we visualize a great feature in the beginning, that is the result which we usually see, that we drain something inside of features which we never use, or
Yeah.
which becomes irrelevant and with time. So what? Great. So we spoke about teams. We spoke about the role of an agile coach, and how the small wins can be converted into a bigger transformation, and making IT as a part of the business, or as a partner with the business, rather than just a support function. What kind of role, or what kind of trend you see in organization leadership towards the attitude towards IT, and understanding the importance of this business agility, and how important it is? Like, what do you see, and what do you expect from leadership to achieve the business agility?
Okay, so what I see is, I mean, I see definitely a trend where IT is recognized, or is being recognized more and more a, as someone who can make a differentiation, rather than just kind of keeping the lights on for the business, or these are the essential guys without which we will not be there. So that trend is definitely there. I think the trend is becoming more and more evident over the last 5 years. Um, Fortunately, or rather unfortunately, the trend is more visible in a lot of the newer startups and a lot of the newer companies than a lot of the traditional businesses. While some of the traditional businesses are today coming around and rethinking about it, and then they're redefining the roles of the CIOs, where CIOs are actually collaborating a lot more with the CMOs and the product management teams, and doing it that way. And I think that is a big difference that is required from the leadership of any business to be able to go down the path of business agility. Unless and until we make this transition where technology becomes the key driver, and the agile teams become the cornerstones of how business value is being delivered and how business is being brought forward, we will continue to see a lot of challenges by the new age companies to the lot of to kind of established businesses, and trying to take their business away on a very short notice, and things like that. So that to me is a thing at the crux. Now coming to the kind of leadership, I think the kind of leadership that is required today by IT, and for anyone to achieve business agility, is with someone who actually understands not only technology but also has a decent understanding of business, is ready to collaborate, and is ready to get that whole collaboration into their teams. So we are not talking only about agile practices. We're talking about someone who's actually making sure that the IT teams are agile teams, making sure the business guys are actually thinking in those terms, and then bringing these two together. That I think is the key role that the leadership today needs to play in most of the businesses, for them to be able to achieve and survive in what I call the future is knocking at our doors.
True, true, true. So it's an integration of business and IT, and the openness to change, openness to exploit opportunity, and the leadership should demonstrate that behavior before it can be executed by the ground people. Great. Anything you want to talk about your talk? Because I think you are talking about business agility, and one more topic. I think you are talking about two talks. You are at our Discuss Agile conference, which is scheduled on this weekend only. Yeah.
Sure thing. Yeah, so there are two talks that I'm talking about. The first one is something that we've been talking about today, which is business agility. What does it mean, and what is the role that ID needs to play in order to have a business achieve what I call the business agility. So I'll be talking about kind of an emerging trends and how those things are causing disruptions. I will taking examples of a couple of things where I think the real disruption has already happened and people have lost their businesses or in the process of losing businesses, versus certain examples where we have kind of worked with some of the established customers, and have been able to bring in business agility. Both, I would kind of talk about a couple of examples. One from a established enterprise perspective, one from a startup perspective, and seeing how we have been able to bring in business agility what kind of leadership was there, how the environment was conducive to it, and what do I think are the cornerstones that any team or any organization needs to have in order to achieve business agility. So that's the first one of the talks. The other talk that I have in the conference is about kind of sharing my experience in executing large distributed agile projects. So I have been involved a lot in terms of distributed projects ranging between, I would say, about 30, 35 member team to one of the largest one involving 220 people team on single and multiple code bases. I mean, the challenge with 220 people team was that it was a single code base. And so we have struggled quite a bit. We've learned a lot in terms of how the kind of, we made certain mistakes and we learned from there, we kind of changed tracks. But I think we've been able to understand and build out something where we were finally able to be successful in delivering these large engagements involving the one where I can talk about 220 people. We ran that out. I mean, I myself was running that program for about 2 years, and that program was going on for about 5 years now. So I'll be kind of talking about my learning, sharing my experience in terms of mistakes we made, what we learned, how we evolved, and what I think is kind of worked for us in achieving or in being successful in delivering those large distributed projects.
Great, great, and definitely we will ask a lot of questions, and you are with us for 2 days, so
Yes.
there will be a lot of pocket of discussions on these topics. And to me, these both topics looks like the real case studies where you are talking about your experience. We have already discussed about the concepts, and there's good amount of theory already available.
Yeah.
We would be talking about the specific examples, and maybe also talking about what didn't work. So like the practices which you changed and all. Great. And I'm sure that we all will enjoy those conversations and talks. Thanks, Nitin. Thanks for joining us today. It was a very interactive and helpful session to understand the business agility and your talk for our upcoming conference. And I hope to see you in conference, and we will be there for 2 days.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Saket, for the opportunity. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And I'm definitely looking forward to the conference and spending like 2 days talking to a lot of you guys.
And Nitin is quite active on Twitter. So if you have any queries, you can start the interaction earlier. Like you can put a hashtag discuss agile, and you can also check Nitin's tweets using hashtag discuss agile. So that's another way of starting the conversation, because word is changing. You should not limit to the conference. Things are agile. Okay, thanks, Nitin. See you on Saturday.
Yeah, thanks, Saket. Thank you. Bye.